Whenever I first start recording, everyone's like prim and proper and like ready to go. It's too funny.
I'm gonna end up laughing
Okay,
my head
Lauren
off.
Brown, hi, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. Having worked in real estate for over 11 years now, you have so much knowledge to share with me, with our listeners, not only about real estate, but also investing in real estate. So, working as
Yeah.
an agent for so long, we can get into the nitty gritty of what it's really like to be an agent, maybe debunk some of the the
Yeah,
ways that it's
absolutely.
being represented on social media, reality TV, because we all know it's not so like glamorous as it
Yeah.
looks.
Oof.
And really get into all of those things, maybe share some tips with our listeners. But I want to start by asking you what attracted you to get into this field.
Yeah, I was actually when I was in school, I really wanted to be a lawyer. So it's I guess there's similarities, but it's very different. At the time, my boyfriend, I was seeing him really be entrepreneurial in the internet space. And I was in school, I was feeling unmotivated. I felt like my days could be spent better. I wanted to be out there meeting with people. I wanted to be making money. And when you're dating someone who's so entrepreneurial, it's hard not to catch the bug.
Mm,
And I remember, I'll never forget it. We were sitting at a kitchen table, and he was one that was like, you know what you'd be really good at, and he told me real estate. And the next day, I went and I stopped school, and the thinking behind that was, at least this will be a field that I can learn, and if ever it doesn't work out, I can go back to school, obviously, and at least I'll have gained this knowledge that I'll always be able to use, even if I don't end up working in real estate. You always
yeah.
end up renting, buying, or selling a house. So in terms of not taking a gamble, it felt like a safe play to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, my husband and I bought our first home about 3 years ago now. And there are
Nice.
so many things, even after, like before that, we had rented, and even like the first
Yeah.
time renting experience or the first home buying experience. Like, I really wish, luckily, did have my dad who had been working in real estate. So, like, I did have a little bit of guidance there, but he's in
Yeah.
Quebec, I'm in Ontario. So, there are some differences. But in essence, he did like he was like, pay attention to the sun and like this like weird shit like that. Like,
It's such a dad comment.
like
That's
make sure you
so
have sun
funny.
in your backyard all day, like little things like that. But
That you
there's
would
just
never
like
know.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that and like layout of your house, all of these different things. It's like I wish I would have known, but now that I've done it once, I'm like, okay, like what's the next
You're
step?
an
Because we'd
expert.
love to keep this house as like an investment property, then get another, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. It's a whole thing. So obviously, like you need to have that entrepreneurial spirit, right, to get into it. So
Yeah.
like, how has that been? Like that transition? You have obviously haven't turned back, so far so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I never turned back. And it's funny, there were so many times that I did, like the first 5 years. I mean, no one other than my friends and family would know it because I was really like fake it till you make it. But
Mm.
it was not good. Like it was not good. My phone would get shut off because I just didn't have any money to pay for my phone bill, and my friend would
Oh
have to
wow.
transfer me like $125. Um, I came from like really hardworking parents too, so it's not like I had like these like very wealthy parents that had this like huge network to feed me. It was really I was 20 years old, and it was like already you had no experience, and who's going to trust a 20-year-old to sell their home, right? It's
Hmm.
really hard. So I was doing so many rentals, and the first 5 years I went into crazy debt. And I don't know, I didn't want to stop. I think it was a pride thing. It was like this competition within myself. And I also had so many friends that had started their own businesses. I had a lot of older friends, and they always told me like there's a 5-year mark. There's a 5-year mark. And also my parents weren't the happiest that I had gone into that. So it was just like I had to keep pushing.
Hmm.
And when you're in so much debt, I was like a horse with blinders. Like I was just like, I'm not gonna stop. And yeah, so it was really tough at the beginning. And then you get older and you build this confidence because you've been part of enough transactions. So that really helps, and people start to feel that from you, right? Like
Yeah.
when you're starting, like you can tell that, like the person's shitting bricks.
Like a lack of experience. The experience comes through
Yeah.
eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you can fake it, but there's stuff that you can't, like technical components I just couldn't. So, but
Hmm.
yeah, after about 5 years, like 4 to 5 years, I got that confidence. And after saying yes to everything, like I
Yeah.
would just tell everyone who needed me, yes. And at the time, I think that work ethic was still a lot more present. I don't see it as much out there today. Um, so yeah, just after having that confidence, and then you build that clientele, and it becomes this wheelhouse of business that's feeding itself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And I can
Yeah.
totally relate because I mean, I started off as a designer, and now I'm running a company and I have an entire team.
So
And what's
cool.
cool is that I started off doing their jobs, right? And as I built my business, I kind of moved myself up the chain, if you will,
Yeah.
starting off as the designer, then, going into project management, client account management. I manage all of the accounting, the numbers. So like I really understood how the business was operating before I gave it off to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what really gave me a leg up. And I found something interesting that you said. You're like, oh, it took like 5 years to really kind of like get your groove. And I have heard that before too, where it's like, oh, like a lot of companies, it takes at least 5 years to be like profitable, for example,
Yeah. Yeah.
which it's interesting in the way that I built my business. I was profitable from day one because it's service based, and I
Yeah.
was only paying people to do work that someone was paying me to do, right? So there was always a
Right.
margin. And then you kind of get to a point where it's like, wait, you have all these extra expenses because you're paying for programs and things to help with the processes. And in the beginning, you're doing everything like all the free versions, the free trials, the whatever.
Exactly.
And then eventually you actually have costs that are not necessarily associated to income. So for me, the journey was I just hit my 5 years, I think in January. So I'm like maybe five and a half
Wow.
now. So
Yeah.
I was doing great. And then this year versus last year, I felt the most stagnant, like the least amount of growth,
Really?
which is the most interesting. Yeah. And I don't
Yeah.
know, like, I'm still trying to like figure it out and pinpoint it. Like, I'm kind of restructuring some things, refocusing on our main business and where it's coming from, because it's
Yeah.
not to say that I not successful because I didn't achieve the goal that I wanted to this year, but there's still that level of disappointment that comes in where it's like, oh, I really wanted to like hit that double goal again and I
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
So,
It's tough. I mean, like, I don't think because there's something about like even in when you feel like you're being stagnant, you're still growing and you just don't even
mhm,
realize it. Sometimes you feel like you've hit a plateau, but there's all these little things happening in the background, or the psychology behind it, of like the work that you're doing within your head is like
mhm,
maybe that's the growth, or the
yes,
restructuring. Like I talk a lot about pivoting in my business. Like sometimes you have to pivot and you have to see, you know, maybe you're not feeling fulfilled. Like I had a year where I made astronomical amounts of money and I was just like, I was dead, I was unhealthy, and I was burnt out. And it was
mhm,
like, it came with an age thing too. Like I remember when I was younger, it was like, I want to make a mill a year, and it was all quantifiable. It was all like money
dollar
based,
based, yeah,
dollar based. And now like my priorities have shifted so much, like I think as a woman, you get to a certain age and you want this balance in your life. Like you want to
mhm,
feel healthy, you want to listen to your body, you don't want to be killing yourself. So now my goals have shifted.
yeah,
But then like if you ask somebody else, like, oh, she made less money this year compared to that year, somebody might say like she didn't reach her goals, or she's not as successful, she's not growing. So I
yeah.
guess it's really relative.
Totally. And you know what? I kind of needed to hear that too for myself because it's true. And there
Yes.
are other things. There are other things that like I've seen growth in, and I do have to remind myself because sometimes you get stuck in that one track mindset when you have such specific goals. It's like you're almost creating these weird like walls for
Yeah.
yourself as
Yeah.
opposed to just like allowing whatever to happen. Because look, I mean, I started this podcast, this was never like part of the plan. And there's all
So
these other little
cool.
things that are happening within the business that are things that I should be proud of and should consider. But like I had been so laser focused on that dollar amount for so long that
Right.
maybe that's what's causing the disappointment. But you're right, like
Yeah.
paying attention to all of those different elements in your life and where you can see and find those little tidbits of like happiness and balance is so, so important. So, like, what are some of the things that you do in your life to make sure you have that balance now that you've been through so many years of working hard, burning out? I mean, you still
Yeah.
look to be busy as shit on social media.
Yeah, no, I'm still super busy, but I've just I think for many years, so what happened was like I got out of debt, and then the work ethic just continued. Like I
Hmm.
had I was a horse with blinders. I was like, I'm gonna wait till I get out of debt. And then you get out of debt and you're making as much money, and it's like the snowball effect. And then I remember like, I remember there was certain milestones of what I wanted to make, like the jump from like 100 to 200 was like really, really hard. And then you kind of honestly, like you start making money and closing stuff and it's like, you're like, okay, what's next? You're not
Yeah.
like, this is sick. Like, this is an
Hmm.
insane amount of money. Or like, this is like, I really earned this. I worked on this deal for 8 months. Like, you're just like, go, go, go. And there's so many realtors that suffer from that. And I think that it's just gross. Like, I kind of looked at myself at one point and I'm like, are you serious? Like, what? So I slowed that down. I had like a health issue too at the same time. And so now, and it becomes very like repetitive in real estate, right? Like the deals are all different, but it's the same system, it's the
Hmm.
same process. And I was just like, why do I feel so unhappy? And then I thought about it and I was like, I'm not expressing my creativity. Like, I'm not getting to tap into, and I'm so creative and
Hmm.
I love building stuff.
Because you love like
So,
architecture and design too, right?
I
I guess
love
that's how
it.
like it's segued into like investing and designing spaces. You're like,
That's
okay, I'm
it.
bored. Let's do
Yeah.
something new and exciting.
That's it. And like I was helping my clients. I really cater to my clients, not just on the deal, but on the back end too. I think it's part of like the biggest thing that really gets me going is seeing people make money. And so you
Hmm.
can't just leave them alone at the notary after. Like I help them do their projects, manage their things. It's really like a more curated approach. And I was like, I'm doing this for all my clients and they're killing it. And I was like, I have to start doing it for myself more. And I think it'll be much more fulfilling and always in the space of real estate. I love this thing. Like when it doesn't feel like work, there's so many different angles that you can tap into. So I started renovating. That's been super time consuming. I also, on a less grander scale, my mom's always been someone who like refurbishes furniture. And so like our house would always look amazing. We didn't have a lot of money, but it was just all these like really thoughtful little things that we could do to make something look expensive. So I like doing that on my spare time too. And honestly, I always talk about like rich life, like the biggest thing that you want to splurge with your disposable income. Like I love traveling. Like that's
Hmm.
why I continue to work this hard, is like I just never want to not be able to take a trip, you
I
know?
know. I feel like every time I'm on your social, it's like another trip, another destination. I'm like, girl, I want to get you on the pod. Why you keep traveling? But then it was my turn. So, I mean, I'm glad we
Yeah.
made this happen.
You too. You were traveling for so long there, like like for many years though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, I mean, it's been a huge part of my lifestyle like for me too, like talk about like rich life, it's for me experiences. Like I've never
Yeah.
cared so much about like the designer stuff. Like honestly, like I'll buy a knockoff. I don't really give a shit. Some
Yeah.
people love that
A
shit. My
hundred
sister loves that
percent.
stuff, but I mean, for me at the end of the day, like I'd rather spend my money on those trips, on those experiences. It's just like
Yeah.
so fulfilling to like see the world and completely disconnect. Like that was huge. I just came back from it was like 10 days in like the
I
Amalfi
saw.
Coast. I barely touched my computer. I like checked my
It's
emails, but did I answer
yeah.
them? No. you know.
Like to me, that's like back to what you said. To me, the fact that you can do that and you can jump right back into it, or just like if we want to go right back to the basics, the fact that you have a business where you can do that, like a lot of people
Mhm.
can't. Of course,
Yeah.
everyone has their vacation time, but you could have worked and made money while you were there. And like the fact that you were like, I really want to take this time with my husband and enjoy it. Like I really pay attention to those things for myself because I'm like,
Mhm.
I take a moment. I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like this is insane,
Yeah,
you
but
know?
because
And
ultimately though, like having that time off too gives you the opportunity to like do your work that much better. So it's
yeah,
like just because you're on all the time doesn't necessarily equate to like certain levels of like success or growth or whatever.
yeah,
I actually spoke about this with my last guest is that the importance of recharging, right? And
yeah.
like having that downtime in order to be able to push yourself further.
Thank God that's like trending again
Yeah.
because there was those years where like the burnout was cool. And I remember
I
I
hate
would like
that.
hear myself say it and I would be like, I'm working so hard. And even my
Yeah.
friends would be like, shut up, you know?
Mhm.
Like it's not attractive anymore. Taking time, and to be honest, like I have some clients that give me a hard time when I'm away and I don't really want to work with those people because
Yeah.
I'm handling it just as well while I'm away, if not better. And honestly, it's lighting a fire under my ass, like while I'm away, so that when I come back, like I come back guns blazing, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
I think
You have such a
it's an
new level of
investment in
energy.
yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. Totally. Speaking of investment, let's go back into property investment.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So, I want to talk a little bit more about your project that you're working on right now, and then we'll
Yeah.
chat more like maybe any tips that you have for other people that may be interested in investing, because you've been supporting your clients, but you also purchased property and renovated to then flip and be a landlord yourself, correct?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what does that process look like from like beginning to like getting that tenant?
Yeah. Yeah. So I like to focus more on a model. And if we were to like really break it down simply, is you buy, whether it's a condo, a house, or an investment property, but you buy it as a goal that it's going to be an investment property. Um, you wait till the tenant leaves, whatever it is, and then you renovate it in an optimal way so that then you can, what we say optimize rent, so that you can rent it at a higher market value. And then now that you've added this value to the building, and now that you have this lease signed at this higher market value, you can then go back to the bank, refinance, and you're basically paying yourself back.
So
Like
what are
anyway,
some things that you can do to increase the value?
yeah, so that's what's really fun about doing my own projects. I've been doing real estate for so long now that I know exactly like what clients look for, and so it's making my projects so smooth.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously you want to focus, like if you can't do kitchen and bathroom, then focus all your money on the kitchen. You can't go wrong. Um, it's funny, like a lot of people use IKEA, but I've found suppliers that do custom kitchens, and you actually save way more time by working with a professional company at the right cost to do a kitchen. Whereas IKEA was like, I did 1 out of 3 kitchens, the last one IKEA, and it was such a nightmare.
Oh no.
But yeah, it's just so much time consuming, and it's too like it's not curated enough. So I would say kitchen, like bar none, and a paint job. That's the most important, really. And little things like, let's say you can't redo your cabinetry. Like my mom always taught me that, like just change the hardware. People don't think
Mm-hmm.
of that,
Yeah, we did
or
that.
yeah, it makes such a
Mm-hmm.
big difference. I have people like I just had my girlfriend over the other day. She didn't have a huge budget for her kitchen, and she rewrapped her cabinet. So she took an X-Acto knife and she cut off the foil wrapping. It was like a white, like a brown, like kind of plasticky cover. Most of it is like a melamine, and
Okay.
she rewrapped it in white, and it cost her like a couple $100, and it
Wow.
looks it looks like she redid her kitchen.
I didn't
So
even know you could do that.
exactly. You know what I mean? Like so many people don't
Exactly.
know that. And like that's what I love with my clients, is like I'm not here to be like, let's go get you a $40,000 kitchen. Like it's not necessary. I think,
Mm-hmm.
again, talking about successful, to me it's like way more successful. It's like, how little money can you spend
The little
to make it
hacks.
look, yeah, especially if it's going to be a revenue property. Like you don't always want to, like, depending on the level of rents you're looking for, it doesn't make sense to redo your whole kitchen, but just a facelift, let's say.
Yeah. So when all of this stuff is happening, are you working as the project manager, or did you like hire someone to oversee the project? Because weren't there a few going on at once?
Yeah. Yeah, I have like different involvement with different stuff. This last one was really my baby. I'll be involved in other projects, like I'll throw in a bone with a client, or I'll be the project manager for a client. But this last one was like, I mean, I essentially rebuilt a 1920s construction from
Cool.
scratch. Like there's nothing I didn't do. And it would have been cheaper and easier to bulldoze it to the ground. But when it's a century home, you can't, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it would have been easier to build something from scratch on like a bare lot. But no, I was involved in everything, and I acted as project manager, kind of mirroring one of my best friends who's also who's a contractor, and I just followed him, and he was super busy, so I got to like really learn from him, and then I was on site kind of, directing people, and it made me realize that it's a part of the business that I wanted to get to know more, I
Mm-hmm.
think, because it's so intricate. Oh my God. It's like the plumbing and the electrical, and the steps that things, like the order of things is
Yeah.
just, it's crazy. Then it allows me to be more skillful in my projects, and then more knowledgeable in my real estate transactions, right? Like now I can walk into a house after doing this size of project, and I can price things out with my clients really quickly, which makes a huge
Yeah.
difference now that prices are much higher than they were before.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Just like understanding and like dipping your toes in all of those different avenues, having that
Yeah.
holistic knowledge, I relate to. It's very similar with my business and understanding all of the different steps, right? It's kind of part of the sale too. The more you
Yeah.
know, the
Big
better
time.
and easier it is for you to sell.
Yeah.
And then you bring in that confidence aspect, right? Because you're not just memorizing like a spec sheet,
Right.
like you really do know.
Exactly. You can see, or like what to look for,
Yeah.
right? I think it's a lot of added value, and now people have the time to do their inspections. Thank God the market's quieted down a little bit, but during COVID, where like a lot of people knew that they probably wouldn't get the house with an inspection clause, having that extra layer of confidence, like it's never
Mm.
perfect, right? I'm not opening up walls, but being able to tell my clients like whether I felt comfortable them waiving inspection or not, was definitely really helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure like the age of the home and stuff has a lot to do with it. And because you probably
Yeah.
understand like the neighborhoods, do you focus in one specific neighborhood or are you kind of all of Montreal?
I'm all over, honestly. It just happened like that because, like I said yes to everyone when I first started. So then your the people that do end up working with you or agree to work with you end up kind of parking themselves anywhere and everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was in Vaudreuil yesterday, but I do work a lot in NDG, and I happen to work a lot in the West Island too, just because I grew up there. But yeah, I would say like the majority of my business happens in those two neighborhoods, which again are so far from each other. But I'll go anywhere, honestly.
Yeah. So, for someone who might be interested in getting into real estate, whether as an agent to sell homes or as an investor, the answer, I guess, might be different for like one or the other or both. But, like,
Yeah.
what's one key characteristic that you think is really important for someone to possess to do this job well?
Um, Great question. Initiative. I think initiative. I think that you need to, I mean, confidence comes after, but I think there's some people that like they're born with that sense of initiative, and I see it every day, whether it's through people I'm looking to hire, people that I work with. Um, that sense of initiative where it's you just like I don't know how else to
You have
explain
you
it. Like
have you have
initiative.
the motivation. Yeah, you have the motivation to
Yeah,
like
like
wake up, put in the work.
yeah, or like to have your brain think like, okay, what's next before someone having to tell you. I think that's
Hmm.
really helpful, whether you're going to work for yourself or for someone else. Because even when you work for yourself, you're working for your clients.
Yeah.
Um, and like no ego. Like a lot of people think that you need this big ego. And again, it'll kill you because there's so much bitch work to do and it's not glamorous. And until maybe until you get to a certain point. And I think like people that have this ego should just like they should go into investing. Like go into investing, no problem. But if you're gonna be a broker with ego, like it's just not gonna work, you know?
Do you feel like real estate has been misrepresented on reality TV?
Oh my god,
Like, for
yeah.
example, Selling Sunset $1 million listing. Like, obviously, there's a lot of drama involved. They are making television, but I
Yeah,
think a lot of people kind of got excited when all these shows came out and they're like, oh my God,
for
I want to be a real
sure.
estate agent because it's glamorous, this and that. But like you said, like there's a lot of bitch work. There's a lot of things
Oh
to
my
do that
god.
it's not just, you don't just like sit there and sign your name on the paper, right? They're
Yeah.
just showing the highlights and obviously the gorgeous homes. So yeah, that's fun. But like, how do you feel it is either properly or misrepresented versus like what
Yeah.
you're actually dealing with?
Yeah. Listen, like the other day, like my friend was over and she put on Selling the OC and I had never seen it before. And she was like yelling at the TV, and like she was actually mad. She was like, "They're so stupid." I'm like, "But like, why do you get mad? Like, it's working. Like, we're watching. You know what I mean?" So I get why they're doing that, but yeah, it's obviously a misrepresentation.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you
there are
watch any
people
of the
that
shows?
it took me like I started Selling Sunset like I think 2 or 3 like when the last season started.
Right. Okay.
I couldn't do it. It made me cringe. And then everyone kept telling me, like, oh, you remind me of Christine Quinn. And I had heard that she was like the bitch of the show. So I
Yeah.
was like, how? Like, what?
Well, she has
So
epic fashion, so that's a compliment at least.
just, yeah. So I watched it, but like more like I like background shows, right? Just so that I can like work and just
Yeah.
noise in the background. Yeah, it has been misrepresented. Don't get you can get hired as a a door opener, right? And then you make a lot less money, but like they're essentially door openers. Like they're glorified door openers from what I see. I don't
So what
know.
does that mean for like someone who's unfamiliar with that term, a door opener?
Yeah. A door opener is somebody that gets hired either for one specific broker or on a team. And like they're literally just there to show homes. Like they're going to go and they're going to open the door. You know, they have to know about the house. They can answer your questions. But it's
Hmm.
like, it really is what it says it is. It's like, you're just opening doors. You're not doing contracts. You're not doing the negotiation. You're not doing the staging and the listing launches. You're really just there as like a presence to open the door.
Okay, so it would be like the owners of the agency that are doing all the negotiations on the contracts. Is that like what's happening? Or
No,
they
so
have other
like so
people?
well, so the agent, like the broker, we call ourselves broker now in Quebec. I don't know why they wanted to change the term. So brokers are the ones doing all the negotiations. But for example, between 2019 and 2021, I had two door openers because I was just so busy. And like I
Mm,
had to be there for, my VIP clients, or like you can't be in two places at once. So
yeah.
you'll hire a door opener. I guess like you'll pay them like roughly 10% of the close. Like it really depends on the property value. But you'll pay them 10% if the property closes, or you pay them on a salary. And it's just so that they can go to your listing and show the house, or they can bring your buyers and show them the house so that you can be in different places at the same time.
That's kind of
Like
nice.
it is nice because you know what? That's why I think back to what I was saying, like when clients get upset that when I am gone, is the only thing I can't do is open a door when I'm gone. Because everything else, negotiations, launching a property, speaking to my clients, I'm doing.
Hmm.
And I'm not the kind of agent that like will follow you and be like, look at this kitchen. Like I'm not like Vanna Whiting it, like I think it's so tacky. So I don't need to be there. People know, like it's like if you go shopping for clothes, you're gonna know what you want and what you don't want. Like evaluating the technical aspects, I might go visit it after by myself to make sure there's nothing that's that I'm missing for my clients. But you don't need to be there to sell a home.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah. No, it's
it's the
true. I mean,
biggest
I remember going in
misconception.
and looking at the end of the day, like I didn't really care what anyone said to me. It was just like a walkthrough. And I've gone to a lot
Yeah,
of like open houses too, just for fun. It's like,
on
yeah, you
your
could just like
own.
leave me alone and I can walk around and you know what I know
Yeah,
what I'm looking for. It's just like, where is the house located? Like my dad said,
yeah,
what direction is the backyard facing?
exactly. Are we east or west? No, it makes a big difference. You need to have someone there. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, all these lockbox situations are really not ideal. Like again, some brokers put a lockbox, which means like people
Yeah.
will be able to go with their own agent. Um, but I think it's really nice to have a door opener who knows the listing, because then it's just like that human experience rather than just like letting yourself in.
Yeah. Do you feel
But
like there's a different like level of experience too, though, depending on like the price of the home? Because there's, I guess, I don't know
mm,
what to call the market, but more of like an average market and then like a luxury market, right? So
yeah.
are your clients in one or the other? Do you have a bit of both? And like, do you see yourself not necessarily treating them differently, but like, is there a difference in the overall experience when dealing with a luxury client versus like the average Joe, let's say?
Yeah, for sure. There definitely is, but it's not so much a price point thing. I think it's like a personality style. Like that's something I learned a lot about. I had a business coach for very long, and just like mirroring people and understanding who you're dealing with, like is he a driver? Is she an expressive? So I always go more based on that. But to answer your question, yes, but it's also a misconception. Like I think a good broker, which I personally, I mean, there's like 18,000 in Canada or in Quebec. Anyway, there's a lot. But there's maybe like seven that I'm like, oh, okay, like I see you. And just based on how they work and like how
Hmm.
educated they are. And so when you're one of those brokers, when you're somebody who like really knows the business, you're genuine, your intentions are genuine, and you're a workhorse, I think whether it's a $200,000 listing or $200 million listing, like you can get it done because you're just like hunting, you're connecting people with the property, right? So I don't think it makes a difference. There's a big misconception in some of the luxury markets in Montreal where they have to list with like specific brokers, and it's funny because they end up just becoming like a pin in a haystack, like a needle in a haystack, in the sense
Mm,
that these big brokers have a million listings, and it's literally impossible for them to give you as much attention as
yeah.
you really need for your luxury product. But people continue to do it because it's just like it's a misconception, right?
Hmm.
So I think a good realtor who's educated and who's going to find these strategic ways to sell a property, like it really shouldn't matter what price the property is.
So what's your end goal? Like where are you going with Lauren Brown Homes? Like do you want to stay like alone, work with a bigger team, reach a
Yeah,
certain market, expand
yeah.
outside of Montreal? Like what's the long-term goal here?
All the tough questions. Um, it's cool to not be. I used to put so much pressure on myself that I would future trip. That's what my friends say. Like,
Mm.
I'd have to know exactly what my business plan is and where I'm going to be. And as I've gotten older, I've realized I'm just a yes man. So it's funny, like things can just land in my lap through an encounter and bring me to the next thing. But right in this moment, I have no intentions of building out a big team. I think a lot of value that I give to people is how much I'm involved in the transaction, and that's what my clients really like. And as soon as you build out these big teams, obviously you lose control. So that's not in the books right now. I am looking to hire one or two people just because I actually lost some really good people after COVID. They went back to their dream jobs, for example, like flight attendant. One of them I trained so well, he's like neck and neck with me, like he's doing the same production as me. It's really cool to see. Like, so I have to rehire, and it's been tricky to find exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So that's immediate future. But building the Lauren Brown Homes brand, and not just as a broker, but I have these really big plans in my head for a home, like a home decor line that I want to start. And
Fun.
again, like passion project style, you know, and that's where you kind of know that it'll end up doing well, because I wouldn't be doing it, you know, to make big bucks. And like, I think one thing just, it ends up going hand in hand. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I want to know, there's things that I feel like there's lacking in the space, affordability wise too, design wise. Like sometimes it's really hard for me to find things, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, why is this so hard to find?
Mm-hmm.
It's not expensive to make. So that would
Yeah.
be, that's like the bigger picture. That's like my little dream.
Fun. I can almost see like this, not, I don't want to say blog because it's just like diluted that word, but like some kind of like website where you like have all those resources and those like hacks and whatnot where people
Yeah.
can go and you can share your expertise in like a larger way and it still be
Yeah, you're
like
right.
Lauren Brown Homes, you know?
Yeah.
But what's your take on like, so for me, a big part of not wanting to be on my own was to be able to like disconnect and have my freedom. And like, yes, they don't get like the personal Alyssa's wanna approach, I guess, but I do train
Yeah.
my team to deal with things in the way that I would.
Hmm.
So for example, like if you wanted to have a family and like really be like with your kid, would you see yourself more like taking that time off, or maybe you don't want kids at all? Like how do you see yourself, I guess, like being able to fully disconnect, or are you just going to
Yeah.
choose to do that without being compensated? Because that's the big thing. It's like when
Yeah.
you're relying your income on you, like the person, then when you're not there, what happens, you know?
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Like it's a business where right now it's nice. I have a system where I don't have in-house people per se, but I have people that, you know, that we're looking for more work, and I'll delegate certain tasks to them. Like they're not
Hmm.
on salary.
More like
And
freelance
then
kind of.
yeah, more like freelance. No, and I do want kids to answer your question. And like it's impossible to do what I'm doing right now with children. Like it's
Hmm.
literally impossible. So no, definitely like a small team. I guess when I think team, I think about this like big production.
Right. Like
Um,
Ryan Serhant.
yeah, exactly, which is so cool. It's
Yeah.
not for everyone, but the years that I was the most successful in, I had my assistant, who was somebody who like stayed at the office and did all my administrative work. And I had a buyer's broker, because going out for visits with clients can be tedious. So I think if you have like a 3 to 4 person team, like I could definitely keep this machine still going. I
Right.
see
Hmm.
other like my colleagues do it all the time. Um, and also eventually, like even like I'm very tight knit with my business. I don't carry 25 to 30 listings. I'll carry like 5 to 10, and I move them. Like I don't shelf stuff, right? Like a lot
Hmm.
of people shelf stuff, and like if I have a listing, it's because it's there and I'm gonna sell it. So keeping that, even that circle even tighter, and only working with like really my like VIP clients, not price point wise, but just in
Yeah.
terms of relationship,
Hmm.
and focusing on renos. Like I know like the idea of like being pregnant and doing a renovation is probably not the most like realistic, but again, like I wouldn't be my own project manager. I would just be like, you know, there to be making the decisions, and I
Yeah.
would hire a project manager. But I love renovating so much that I think even if I have to take a step back from brokering to give,
You would
let's say, my
still want to be
future family.
involved. Hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
No, I see that. If like this is something that I think I would love to do too. So 3 years ago, we built our home. It was part of a development. So like we had like a plan to choose from, but we picked our
Yeah.
finishes and stuff. So even that, like to decide on like the color of our floors, our light fixtures, like they gave us like a lighting budget and we were able to go and like
Yeah.
pick that. And then to pull it all together with like the counters mixed with our furniture, like that to me was so, so, so fun. I mean, like being in design, there obviously are some parallels with like interior design
Of
and like
course.
architecture and all of that.
Yeah. There
So
really is though.
yeah, no, and it would be so fun for me. Like I told Ryan, my husband, I was like, either we're gonna walk into our house and be like, we need to start a business, or be like, what the fuck have we done?
Yeah.
Because
It's
it's
never
like
what the fuck have we done? It's never that. Like, especially with somebody like you who like you could just tell that you would have an eye for it. Like it doesn't happen.
I
You
made
know what I
mood
mean?
boards. I straight up, like,
Yeah.
I went to the first
Yeah.
thing, like, I had PDFs
For
of like
sure.
inspo with like the colors, the textures, this and that. And they're like, because it's like a spec home. They're like, well, we only have like this palette of the floors. I was like, I want the one that's closest to it. So they're like, I think we can get you close to what you want. And anyways,
Yeah.
we finished our basement ourselves after. So we were able to be like a little bit more creative there. Like we picked like some funky tiles for the bathroom and whatever. But for the most part, we're pretty like basic and neutral, which I think
Yeah.
next home I would like push the boundaries now that I've done this once the safe way, you
For
know?
sure. Or you could like not like I wouldn't go on the risk. Sorry, this is open. I wouldn't risk it with like doing avant-garde on everything because then it's also like in
Less
less than
timeless.
5 years you'll have to
Mm-hmm.
redo it again.
Mm-hmm.
But me too. Like I love like going and like either like on a backsplash or I always had this idea of like Kourtney Kardashian's home. I hate that I'm
Mm-hmm.
referencing the Kardashians.
Yeah.
But what I love about her home is like, I don't know if it's the same thing, but back when I used to watch it, every room had like a different look. Like her
Mm.
office was like very masculine and like, but like traditional. And like, then she had like this colorful room. And it's like, wouldn't it be so much fun to have this like infinite square footage where like
Yeah.
every part of your personality could like live in a room and like could
Yeah.
design the room. So, but I think, yeah, especially when you're doing it and when you're building your real estate experience and your investment, like that was your first home. The safe way was the only way. You did good. But then eventually, like you can take a risk on it because like, okay, well, we're cash flowing well, our jobs are stable. Like I'm gonna do like a really wild powder room and like maybe I'll hate it in 2 years, but like I know in 2 years it's not gonna kill me to redo it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
it
the big
depends
thing.
on
It's like even with like my fashion, I find the way that I dress, like sometimes I'll like do something a little different, take a risk, be like less like outside of like the neutrals and the blacks and whatever. So I started to get a lot more funky in the last like 2 years, I think, and like the
yeah.
colors that I choose, the way I style my clothes. But it's definitely not timeless. Like it's fun like to look back and be like, that was a cool look, but it's like maybe
Yeah.
I'll wear it once or twice. So it's like because
Yeah.
I feel that way with clothes and it's like more fast fashion in that sense, whereas like the timeless pieces
100%.
live on. Like I have some like like simple Zara pieces that I'll like rewear and can style like a million different ways that I still have today,
Yeah.
that like the random like printed jumpsuit that I bought from Spain, I'm like probably never going to wear again.
Yeah. I've been learning that too with my clothes. Like I love fashion so much too, but at one point I was just buying so much fast fashion,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like first of all it's not good for the environment,
Yeah.
and second of all like it just like it gets all when it gets
It
like
gets
all
ruined
looked in your
fast.
I
Yeah.
hate that.
Yeah.
So now it's like I'll invest on like my blazers and like
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately it is true. You're gonna laugh because we were just saying like selling sunsets not real, but like it is a vain business, honestly. And I tried to fight it for so long. Like I drove a Fiat and like no, I drove a Sienna, like a Toyota Sienna, like a busted up minivan. But yeah, I don't know if anyone remembers that. But then a Fiat, and then like everyone, like all my colleagues would be like, "What are you doing driving a Fiat?" And I'm like, "It's so cute." And
Yeah.
they're like, "Yeah, but if you're gonna pull up and like that's your business card, is your car."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "That's so stupid. That's not true." And then I finally listened to them, and it's like, it's so freaking superficial, but it does make a difference in this business. So it's like, I did want to puke the first time I bought my designer bag, but it was like I had done my biggest sale and I was like, okay, let's just do it because it's part of the look. And like in
Yeah.
terms of that, when you're playing with the big boy, like, when you're like, I'm working on a deal right now that's 15 million. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't show up I guess I could, but like you shouldn't. Why not put the odds in your favor? Like I can't show up like I'm
Mm-hmm.
like starving. You know what I mean? Like
Starving.
no, but you know what I
You
mean? Like
gotta,
you
you gotta,
gotta
you
play
gotta
the
look the
part.
part. Yeah, you gotta look the
You
part,
have to
look
have like big
together.
dick energy and like
Mm-hmm.
whatever you need to do to have that big dick energy, like go do it. Because like
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting at a table with like a lot of big dick energy, you know? And so
Yeah.
it sucks to say, but in terms of that, like I'll be really honest, like I tried to fight it and then I kind of just was like, Jesus, take the wheel. Like we're just gonna do it like this and it makes a difference, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for
So
sure.
investing in little pieces, but not overdoing it.
Yeah, no, and there's a way to also like dress a certain way without it costing you an arm and a leg and to still look good. Like I go to a lot of networking events and I'll pull together simple pieces. It's honestly it's the way you style it, it's the way you
Yeah.
present yourself,
Oh
how
my
you do your
gosh.
hair and your makeup. Ooh, geez, lost my voice
Yeah.
there. But like all of those little things, they come together. And I've actually found a lot of joy in that. Like I always found myself to be a bit more of like a tomboy growing up, but I've really
Yeah.
fallen into like my feminine and girly side in the last like 5, 6 years. And
Yeah.
I'm like all like I love girly shit. Like my sister would have never ever thought she was always the girliest of girls.
Oh my gosh, I remember your
And
sister.
yeah,
She's
super
so
girly, and she still
girly.
is, and she still is.
Yeah.
Like I'm definitely not like there, but I love to get in touch with like my feminine and dress sexy and feel good and like go to these
Yeah.
events and like feel well dressed.
Yeah.
And in the area that I live, like some people care, some people don't. And it's not that I'm trying to like show off, but number one, I actually really enjoy it, and number
Yeah.
two, I literally get compliments all the time on like what I'm
So
wearing, and it's
fun.
fun. Like
Yeah.
sue
It's
me.
honestly, I love my biggest thing is like the contrast. Like I'll be in like sneakers, baggy jeans, and a giant t-shirt on the weekend. And then like because it's fun because during the day, it's like I do have to dress like more professionally and a little bit more
Hmm.
corporate. So I love that flip between like the business dress and then being a tomboy. Like I don't think you
Yeah.
have to have one specific style. Like
No.
you know, it's dress up. Like whenever I have
Yes.
events, my friends all laugh at me. Like I take like a good week to 2 weeks and I'm like I'll plan like what I want. You know, like it's like Halloween to me. Like
Yeah.
am I gonna do like wet hair look and like you can take risks and like you're doing it for yourself. Like you're not doing it for anyone else. And back to your point, like some of the things I get the most compliments on are things that I bought in like vintage stores or secondhand,
Hmm.
or like super cheap, like, you know, I remember Boohoo. Was it Boohoo? Boho? I don't know. There was like this website where like shirts were like $10, you
Yeah,
know, and like
yeah.
obviously didn't last me long, but like it's that stuff. As long as it fits good and
Yeah.
it's not wearing you and you're wearing it, people will be like, oh, okay, and you're like, it's a fun feeling. Like
Yeah.
whoever says they don't like that is lying. That's it.
What, so like I know that confidence has played like a big role in what you do. What like tips would you have for someone to help build their own confidence?
Yeah. You know what? Confidence is like it's honestly it's everything. It's everything, it's everything. It's changed my life. And like real confidence, not the fake it till you make it stuff.
Hmm.
And I got mine from saying yes. Like honestly say yes to everything. I was talking to two younger girls like 2021 yesterday or last week and they were like, "What do I do? Like I don't know what I want to go into after university." And I was like, "Just say yes." I'm like, "Don't freak out. Like don't try to plan like where you're going to go and compartmentalize everything and plan it." I'm like, "Just literally say yes." And it sounds stupid. I know Margot Robbie says the same thing. Like she started with these small roles and then started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and now she's one of the world's like most famous actors and she said the exact same thing is like
Hmm.
at the beginning is not when you're supposed to be like setting your boundaries and saying no to people and playing hard to get in business. It's like
Hmm.
leave your ego at the door and say yes to everything. And don't ask how much you're going to make if you do it. That's my biggest thing. Like I just got goosebumps from that because people are just like they ask about that first, like how much they're going to get paid, how what's in it for them before they do it.
Hmm.
And that's where that initiative just isn't there. Say yes, like take the initiative, go do it well, and you'll see. I promise anyone who's listening to this, first of all, your confidence is going to be there. You're meeting more people, you're having more experiences, and it's just gonna it's gonna catch on like wildfire. And it's like
Hmm.
that with anything. Like, you know, maybe we can do another podcast on that. But like before real estate, I had a little lull, and I went to China, and I worked in China for 3-4 months, and like just the way that that whole thing happened was so just saying yes. And that's what built my confidence, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's my biggest advice is like, stop counting what you're going to make. And like whatever lands in your lap, whether it's a meeting, whether it's whatever it is, going to do something for free for somebody that has pull in the industry you're looking to do, say yes and go do it. And
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what I mean? And
And
just
like,
do it. Yeah.
yeah, like see the value that comes from that for sure. Like when I
Yeah.
first started out working in freelance, I pretty much said yes to everything. Even if it was something I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, I was like,
Yeah.
yep, I'll do it, you know?
You figure it out as you go.
That's it. You figure it out as you go. And if you're like, obviously, you need some kind of skill set or knowledge or whatever direction. Like, you don't want to go in blind and then like mislead someone. They are, if they're paying you and they're giving you money, like you want to do a good
Yeah.
job. But a part of also saying yes to doing something that you're maybe not as familiar or comfortable with is the fire that it puts under your ass to do the best work that you can and to do
Yeah.
the research and to see what other people are doing to, you know, get to that level. All of that
That's a big one.
experience, yeah,
Yeah.
all of that experience is really going to basically like guide you and give you that knowledge to make it to the next level. And so
Or at the
even
very, like the very worst case, sorry to cut you off, like even if you completely royally screw up, now you know exactly what not to do.
not to do.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's always something. And I think also like being coachable, because you said like, what are other people doing? Like, how are they doing it? That's one thing that I've always been through my history in sports and whatnot is like being coachable and asking for help and not being shy to ask the
Mm-hmm.
questions and just being a sponge.
Yeah.
Like the word coachable, like my dad taught me that. It was like always be coachable, always be coachable. And it's like I am. Like and being coachable and saying yes, I think like that marriage of those two things, you'll get ahead and maybe become profitable in way faster than 5 years, you
Yeah,
know?
it's kind of like you said, like putting that ego aside, like that coachability thing is huge. I
Yeah.
too feel like I've been the same way. I think maybe there was a point where I was a little in my head and on my high horse and thinking like, oh, if this is my title and this is what I'm doing, then like no one can tell me how to do it otherwise. But then I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, who is this benefiting? No one, you know. So really listening to what others have to say and also sometimes it's maybe you just take it with a grain of salt depending on the situation. It's not always like take it and run with it. Not everyone's going to give you the best advice, but it is
Yeah.
important to listen to what other people have to say and the feedback that they have to provide because it
Yeah.
could really bring you value in your
100%.
career, your life, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, even if it's just that one little thing, really quickly, like that's one thing I didn't do right is I had such an ego when I started and I wanted to absolutely I didn't want to work with anyone. I think if I would
Mm-hmm.
have joined a team and like really shadowed somebody, I would have done well much faster and had
Yeah.
access to like a bigger network of clients. So, yeah,
Well,
that's my little lesson.
one thing that I did, so I was basically like I started freelancing in 2011, started my agency in 2018, and I basically started an agency without ever working at an agency. I had worked for other
It's so
brands.
crazy. It's so cool. See, like that, like you should go back to that when you're not sure about what's going on right now. Like,
But wait, so like I started this agency. I had experience working for other brands in the fashion industry, whatnot. And so like that was great. Realized like didn't love that, didn't want to do the 9 to 5, wanted to do my own thing, but didn't want to rely on just myself to make money. So that's where the agency concept came in. And then
yeah,
knowing that I wanted to be traveling, the fact that my husband's also a pilot, I needed something that was like flexible and remote and allow me to grow and basically take myself to the next level because I
yeah,
knew that building my way up in an agency in a major city wasn't a possibility because I would most likely not be living in a major city. So I
right.
was like, all right, it's up to me to like figure this out. And in starting Nomad Creative in 2019, we spent 1 year living in Toronto because my husband was doing some kind of like academics there. And I
Okay.
decided to apply for a job at an agency. And while running my business and also working as a flight attendant, I was full time working as an agency and hired as their director in design. So, like, you
So
can
you
do
had
it. And like,
yeah. But you're probably, like, really tired at the end of the day.
exhausted.
Yeah. No, but you can, and you can and the amount of that's probably why you're so hard on yourself this year, though, because it's like those are, like, the building block years, and it's normal that you're gonna be, like, feeling a little bit more restless now, when you've had years like that. But it's also like, I think if every year was like that year, like what you just explained, I think that the definition of success would be different. It'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
why are you still doing this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, whereas like you took what you needed from those experiences, from saying yes to everyone, and now you're literally building your own schedule. You have people working for you.
Mm-hmm.
You started a podcast for fun that's exploding. Like, you know what I mean? So to me, it's so good that you did it then, and I don't think you'd be happy if you were doing that necessarily now, or
Right. And
being under that much stress.
for sure. And all that to say is that like I recognized my lack of experience somewhere and I was like, I'm not above anyone, regardless of having my own agency. Like that can mean anything.
Yeah.
Honestly, you could be making like freaking 10 grand a year and have your own
Yeah.
agency. It really doesn't mean anything. For me, and they hired me knowing that I was running an agency. And I was like, oh yeah, like I have free
That's so
time.
cool.
Yeah.
I
So
guess they really just had the confidence that like in their head, maybe it didn't, like one didn't have to do with the other.
well, so the way that it was, like I pitched it. First of all, they hired like Alyssa Zwanek of Nomad Creative. So they didn't necessarily just hire me as an individual. So I was basically hired as like a subcontractor within their company.
Okay.
And they were focused on influencer marketing, but getting a lot of inquiries on like design and branding. But they didn't have a strong team in house. And they saw that I built a team remotely, which they wanted to
Yeah.
do for themselves. So they basically
Okay.
brought me in to replicate like the model of my business within their business.
It's really
That's
smart of them too. And
yeah.
then, and like you said, then you had these perfect parallels now between what you
Hmm.
were building, and also probably it helped you build cash flow too, or like seeing what they wanted to see what
Yes.
you were doing, and you wanted to see what they were doing.
Oh yeah.
So
I learned so much from what they were doing. And then when I left, I was like, just like little things, like how they would present like proposals and pitch decks and this and that. And I was like, even the way that they were doing things, I was like, whoa, these can be better. But also I'm not doing
yeah,
this at all.
yeah,
So like, thanks for the inspo.
yeah. And then you tweak it, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you ever read the book Rework? And that was like,
No.
that was one of my favorite books that they just, I forget who the author was. But again, that first boyfriend, like my first, that told me to go into real estate, he was like, read this book. Because he's like, everyone keeps saying they have to reinvent the wheel or like make a new product or like have this new invention. But it's like, it's just a matter of like finding, first of all, what you want to do, seeing who's doing it best, and like reworking it so that it's more your
Aligned with you.
style,
Hmm.
so that it's improved, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And I like that idea because it's really not that complicated. You know what I mean? People overthink everything,
Yeah.
and it's like saying yes and then looking at who's doing it better and having the right coaching, and then also like just mimicking what the other people are doing and tweaking it towards your standards, because you'll always want to put your own like twist on it, right?
Hmm.
Like they gave you the base of how things needed to be done because they were maybe a bigger agency,
Yeah.
but because you're more swift, you're able to move faster because you're smaller. You get to like take this like foundation that they were doing that you liked and like tweak it to what you needed to. I think that's so cool. I think that's exactly what you need to be doing in any business, you
In
know?
any business. And like the big thing I took from there too were like their processes and their systems. Like there were a lot of like repeat like jobs and things that I was doing, but like kind of almost like starting over. So now it's like, okay, how can
Yeah.
we template things? How can we create workflows and like make
Systems.
sure systems, make sure that like anytime someone comes in, they know exactly what system to follow, which also helps with like quality assurance and then consistency with experience when clients are coming
Yeah.
in and dealing with Nomad Creative. Because otherwise it's like, especially if I'm not there every step of the way, and chances are like a few people will be coming in and out over the years working for the company, I need to
Yeah.
make sure that that level of consistency is there, or else I'm going to crumble, you
That
know?
it's ironclad.
Hmm.
What kind of clients is Nomad Creative representing now? Is it like across the board?
Yeah, we have a variety because we're a branding agency and
Yeah.
we work with in social media as well. A lot of clients come to us for branding, right? So it could
Okay.
be like in the tech space, it could be in like beauty and wellness, it could be in fashion, it could literally be anything, like a lot of like apps and stuff. So when they come to us for branding, like that's what's fun about it, is like we're not like
Yeah.
niche in a specific industry, because like how boring would it be
Yeah.
if all we did was brand restaurants? Like, you
But there's a lot
know?
of people that do that. That's why I had to
Yeah.
ask, because
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot of companies seem to go towards a
Yes.
specific
well, like even real estate, like there are agencies that work specific in real estate, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can see the value in that for sure. It's just not necessarily like the natural avenue I wanted to gravitate towards. I think myself and my
Amen.
team, like I have some girls who've been working with me for a while now. We like the diversity that comes with
Yeah.
working in different industries, and that, you know, you're not always like creating, let's say if you're in like beauty and wellness, you're not always in that like airy light space or whatever, I don't
Yeah.
know, or like just
I
techie.
agree.
It gets
I feel
boring.
like you're like the design agency. Like that's where we're very similar,
Hmm.
right? Like people are like, "What neighborhood do you work in? What price point do you work in? What part of the business do you like?" But it's like branding, whether it's branding or real estate. Like I said before, there's so many angles that you can
Yeah.
cover, and if I don't. A lot of people like some of the more old school people will tell you like pick one thing and get really good at it. But like if you can be good at all of it, why
Why
not?
not?
As long as it's all encompassing, as long as it's under the same umbrella, I think it keeps the job fun and it keeps you learning too.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that's a big reason why I started the Mindfulpreneur podcast too. Like obviously it's an extension of my business, and like my goal is to interact and connect with other entrepreneurs or leaders, whether it's in my industry or other industries, because there are so
Yeah,
many parallels and there is so much that you can learn. And like obviously ultimately end goal, like I would love to monetize on this podcast, but is that what I'm
for
focused on
sure.
right now? No, you know, because
Yeah,
I want to just like build those relationships and connections and bring that value. And I've seen it. Like it's been so cool seeing it grow on social media and like the response that it's gotten. And like I'm like freaking out over like the analytics and stuff. I'm like, holy shit, like well, how many people, what? Like people are listening to this, they
it's
want to
so
hear, you
cool.
know? So
But
it's
it
been
goes
fun.
back to that. Yeah, because you're doing it from a place of like creativity and more like
Hmm.
a passion project. And
Yeah.
then I'm telling you, like, it always ends up being successful if you want it to be,
Yeah.
right? And because when you're consistent like this and you do things from like a genuine place of curiosity, which is clearly how you started this, it wasn't
Hmm.
to like it's it wasn't to monetize right away. I mean, who doesn't want to monetize
Yeah.
everything? But I think when you do it with the right intention, then it always ends up falling into place. So I have no doubt that you're
Oh,
on that route.
thank you. Lauren, it's been so good having you. I feel like I wanted to get into more like tips for
Yeah.
like we have no time. We can be
I
here
know, but we
forever.
can do, you know what? We can do it again. I want to learn more about your business. I'm like, I love doing this stuff. I think it's so fun sharing ideas. And we kept it general and we kept it more on the entrepreneurial side of things, and which is where we have more in common like that.
For
So,
sure. I think it'd be really cool, like maybe down the line to have you on to answer questions specifically about like real estate, about like the
yeah.
job itself, like for people. I can maybe do a little poll and see what they're interested in. And then
Yeah.
also for people, let's say like buying their first home and little things like that, because like obviously you're so knowledgeable, you've been doing this forever, you got your shit together, you also have impeccable style. So maybe even some design tricks.
Thank you. Yeah, whatever you want. This has been so fun for me. And yeah, whether it's real estate or renos, whatever it is, you let me know. I'm always game.
Sounds good. So I always wrap up the podcast with what I call the mindful minute. I know you've already dropped a ton of advice, but if there was one piece of advice from your life experience so far that you would want to leave with our listeners, what would it be?
Am I allowed to repeat another thing? Because to me, it's like I have my
Yeah.
three. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I my whole life, everything in my life, everything, my relationships, my family, my work success, my friendships. Like I have this incredible friend. Everything in it comes from saying yes. Like honestly, like just being open to the possibilities and not overthinking and just going, whether it's like you don't want to do some whatever it is, just say yes, because one thing leads to another. And it's like you might be going to the movies with your friends and bump into someone, or it might be a trip that like, oh, I shouldn't take this trip. Like say yes, because everything ends up all tying in together. Say yes to staying home too. Like I've said yes to staying home a million times and that's helped me as well. But I think just really being a yes man in business, in life, and with your relationships will really, really propel you forward. And like you can just build this like really, really, really big life by doing that.
I love that. So beautiful. Well, you inspired me today.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I hope other people feel the same way. Where can people find you online on social media?
So my Instagram is Lauren Brown Homes. Facebook is, I just have a business page. It's Lauren Brown. And that's it. And we're working on getting my LinkedIn back up there. Oh, I have TikTok. I really don't use it, but I'm gonna start using it. It's also Lauren Brown Homes.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on TikTok, see what you get going there.
Maybe this will hold me accountable. I just can't get into it. I don't know why, but anyway, we'll get to that next time. Hopefully I'll be better at it by next time we speak.
Honestly, it probably will hold you accountable, because before I even had like the name of my podcast, I was on other podcasts saying I'm starting a podcast. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it eventually, but like it was not planned. So
you're helping me manifest.
Yeah, exactly. It's coming. It's coming. Everyone check out Lauren's TikTok. It might not be on next week, but
yeah, we have to use it as more of a business tool, but we'll get there. We'll get there. There's just so many platforms. Like, it's just like hard to keep up with.
It's a lot. Trust me. I
need
know.
a good branding agency.
Yeah, well, I wonder who you can call.
We'll talk. Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.
Listening. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.